more love, more joy, everything.
It's inspired young people.
Inspiration comes from within you. When you clear out the garbage that's in your mind, you then create space for something better, more beautiful to come in.
Let's have life and have it more abundantly.
I say yes.
It's like taking a workshop. I get to be in my pajamas.
We have a very active imagination, which is why it's important to learn how to harness it and then point it in the direction you want to go.
I listen to your show every day.
It's time now for Living Your Inspired Life with Susan Burrell. Susan is no-nonsense, inspirational, motivational, and fun.
This is positive talk radio.
Practical wisdom for everyday life.
It's a gift you give yourself.
Now, here's Susan.
And welcome to Living Your Inspired Life. We're here on Sundays now from 10 to 11 in the morning and from 8 to 9 at night. Awesome. You're listening to News Talk 1590 KVTA. And Living Your Inspired Life is all about tuning in and tuning up and really developing your power perspective, living your life from the inside out. And so the last show and this show, we are focusing on the Ojai Film Festival, which is all about enriching the human spirit through film. And that's what we do here on Living Your Inspired Life. It's about enriching ourselves, inspiring ourselves, and just uplifting and expanding. So we are having some of the filmmakers that are going to be screening their films up in Ojai the week of November 7th to the 11th. On the show, because I think there are some amazing, dynamic people that are going to be showing up that weekend. The film festival has evolved from not only being a submission competition festival, but we've evolved it into airing films that are screening films. I'm on radio, so I'm talking air, but it's screening. You get to actually use your eyeballs and see these things. But screening the films that are also about environmental solutions and environmental issues that are affecting everyone on the planet. And then we also have later in the show today an expansion of that, which is conscious evolution with Marx Hubbard. So I invite everybody to go to the Ojai Film Festival. You can get tickets at ojaifilmfestival.com. Again, it's from the weekend of November 7th to the 11th. And I think it's fabulous. It's an awesome festival, and it just keeps growing and expanding. And I'm so proud to be able to bring the awareness about the film festival to other people as you're listening. So today, I'm so excited. We have a filmmaker of a movie called Harmony on the line with us today, and I want to invite Julie Bergman Sender onto the show. Julie, thank you for joining me today.
You're welcome, Susan. Nice to be here.
Yeah, I'm thrilled. So your movie Harmony, I found it interesting. It is an environmentally focused film, but it is with His Royal Highness Prince Charles at the focus.
Yes, the Prince of Wales has been for well over 3 decades a real leader in environmental issues that don't just talk about the problems, but are very, very concentrated on the solutions to those problems. And it's not very well known. Excuse me. It's not very well known that he's been this involved, and he gave us the opportunity to make this film with him, and we were very excited.
Yeah, I was going to say, who knew? Who knew he was doing that?
Who knew?
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about what his environmentalism has been and what he feels the solutions are, because I went to the website, which is fabulous. I invite everybody to go and check out the website. Julie, you want to tell everybody what
It's theharmonymovie.com.
Okay. And one of the things that Prince Charles said is that we've lost something very precious, our interconnectedness with nature and a world beyond the material. And that just makes me feel, yes, we have. So,
yeah, and it's kind of interesting in a way because, one could think of him as sort of the ultimate 1% person, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's kind of maybe no one who epitomizes a certain kind of isolation from, the real issues in life and the real struggles that people go through. And in some ways, that's probably true, but in other ways, he's really made it his goal and his responsibility to use his position shine a light and to raise awareness, and in a lot of cases also raise funds to support work that's going on all over the world, and meet people where they are and give them, the opportunity to create their own solutions to the problems they face.
Right. So some of it, so harmony is not just about environmentalism. It's about sustainability. Well, I guess that's environmentalism, but it's also about responsible business and health and education around those things, right?
Yes, it does. It takes the view, as you said in that quote, that really everything is connected. And we used to know that, right? We used to understand that if we took something, we had to figure out a way to give it back. And that was true with the economy, and that was true with the environment, and that was true with education, and that was true with raising children, and it was sort of true across the board. And it was an instinctive understanding that we used to have.
Right.
And a practice that people used to be involved with on a daily basis, a monthly basis, an annual basis. Somehow, in the overtaking of the industrial age, many of the things that were invented obviously were really great. So it's not to say that we have to stop doing everything that that we have to look at progress as a bad thing. No, it's looking forward really to nature as opposed to back to nature. There is no back.
Right.
There's only forward.
Right.
And so the film really does try to take a slightly different perspective maybe on the way to come at the challenges we face, so they don't feel as overwhelming and as dire as they are. Because if we continue to rest on the tragedies, we never get past those, and we never find the solution.
Boy, is that true? And that's a lot of what is amping up the fear within everybody. And so you can't get past your fear to then say, okay, well, what can I do about it?
Yes, I think that's right.
I have to share a really silly, dumb thing with you, Julie. So
Okay.
I was in all of this environmental stuff with the film festival coming up. I was thinking, okay, so what can I do individually for myself that will help, erase some of the carbon footprint. And I don't garden right now. I don't compost because I don't garden. I just don't have that time. But I realized, you know what I could do? This is really silly. I can take all my stuff when I make a salad or do vegetables and put it in my green bin. So at least it's going to the right place when that bin.
That's right.
So there's small solutions that we can find as well as large solutions.
That's right. But imagine for just a second, and I've been talking about this with the festival, with the Green Coalition that's organizing the screening and is providing the programming around the screening. Imagine for a minute that all of Ojai decided on something kind of significant locally that they wanted to do after seeing the movie. And it could be just as simple as what you just described, as taking every single thing that is reusable in some way and putting it in the right place, wherever that may be. That's a huge thing. I know it sounds kind of simple because it really isn't necessarily that difficult to do, but it makes a humongous impact.
Right. And
so I'm glad you did that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. So speak a little bit more about Prince Charles and how he has been the environmentalist. One of the things in the movie is he has a farm, and he decided early on, before organic farming was really the popular thing, to make his farm organic, yeah?
Yes, I mean, there are really sort of two sides to this issue, right? There's the public figure, head of state position he holds as the heir to the throne, in which he's done some unbelievably creative, outside-the-box investing and thinking and prompting world leaders and business leaders around the world to think that way. For example, holding conferences where he will challenge all the heads of the pension funds around the world, and he'll say to them, what are you investing all these pension funds in? Because if you're not investing these pension funds in something that's sustainable, then we may as well, pack up our bags and go home. Because if you're in charge, essentially, of deciding where pensions are invested around the world and what things are going to be money makers for the people whose money you're investing, and you're not thinking sustainably, then we're really in trouble. So he's been doing that kind of very challenging but really important convening for a really long time.
Oh my God, I'm so grateful that he's doing that because.
But personally, he's also done sort of amazing things. He has an organic farm, and he's had an organic farm for 25 years. And some people could say, well, of course he can have an organic farm because he can afford the expense of turning his farm organic. But he's also, runs his estate up in the countryside outside of London, completely off the grid. So it's all gray water, meaning, the water that's used in the house is all water that's been recycled and fed through a very elaborate natural system of going over reeds and rocks to purify it. And he really does run a very environmental life for himself, despite, having, when he travels, to defy that. And that's partly why he doesn't travel as much as he used to, because he's very, very cognizant of the carbon footprint that it involves when he gets on an airplane and goes someplace.
Mm-hmm.
His cars are all run on biodiesel.
Oh, wow.
There were days when we would be shooting, and I would sometimes notice that maybe the collar on his shirt would be frayed. These were not obviously his city clothes. These were his country clothes. And I just thought at first maybe it was some kind of strange affectation, but then I realized that if it's not ruined, he's going to continue to wear it. So he has jackets and shirts and things that he's had for 30 years because they're still perfectly good,
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh. Now, who would have thunk?
Yeah. I mean, he really does. I mean, I guess that was a long-winded way of saying that he really does walk the walk as well as best as he can. And he's always obviously acknowledges that there are some contradictions, but we all live with contradictions.
Yeah. That's actually the existence of the being a human, is you live in a paradox.
Yeah, I mean, nobody's perfect, and he would never claim to be perfect, but he does really think every day about how he can make a positive contribution.
So, Julie, one of the things we talked about a while back, you were saying to the Green Coalition when I was there at that meeting that there's a place where the environmentalists and the people that have the money that could source whatever the solution is need to sit down at the same table and get into the same conversation as opposed to the us against you conversation that seems to happen more frequently.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about that.
Well, there's a sequence in our film that kind of epitomizes this collaboration, and really, it's not just a collaboration that occurs in the environmental movement, obviously, but it's a phrase that's really called conflict collaboration. And the more we look around the world and see how things are solved, the more this style seems to come up, which is all the people who need to be a part of the problem and the solution have to be at the table in order for things to change, right?
Yeah.
So in some cases, in the case of the sequence in our film, which deals with deforestation in British Columbia, and a very, very bold solution that was arrived at several years ago to do the largest land set-aside in the history of the world so far, which is 5 million acres of temperate rainforest in British Columbia. Business leaders, environmental leaders, government leaders, the First Nations of that part, the native populations of those parts of British Columbia who have sovereignty over those lands anyway. All of these stakeholders sat at the table and came up with a solution about how the forest industry, the logging industry, the businesses that were using the paper and the pulp, the activists that were sitting in the trees, the government that was legislating, and the First Nations that really understood the best about how to steward this land and log it, but log it sustainably, had to sit down together and come up with a solution, which they did. And that kind of model, it's one of the reasons why we use the story in the movie, because we really are in the film very much about creating models that can be duplicated in any scenario, in any business, in any personal relationship or business relationship around the world. And that really is what has to happen, is that all the strange bedfellows have to sit together and look at each other across the table.
And realize that we're all in this together. There isn't a us against you paradigm anymore.
No,
it's
we're all
definitely
in it together,
we.
which is part of why the Prince of Wales is a very interesting narrator for this film, because he's not exempt either. You know, it doesn't matter who you are. The global crisis that we're in, no one is exempt from.
Right. And yeah. So
You know.
so it's definitely about exploring that place of harmony. The name of the
Yes,
movie, of
exactly.
finding that holistic solution that includes everybody, because we're all here doing this together.
Yep.
Yeah. One of the things that another quote I got off of your website is Prince Charles said, just as mankind had the power to push the world to the brink, so too do we have the power to bring it back into balance. And I really think that that's true. I think that there's a lot of people running around in the world saying the sky is falling, the Chicken Little syndrome that I call it, you know, and the truth is we do have the tools, we have the capacity, we have the capability to bring everything back into balance if we become consciously aware and awake that we participate in this, no matter where we live.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to sound, either Pollyanna or overly doomsday about it. But what is true is that according to the sort of leading scientific community around global warming and climate change, we have about 50 months left. Now, what that means is that doesn't mean we only have 50 months left till the planet is gone. That's not true. But what is true is that quote that you read of His Royal Highness is where we have just enough time to put the world back in balance again. Just enough is exactly the phrase to concentrate on, because there really is a limited amount of time left.
Okay.
And we really are in a lot of areas, we're into adaptation, unfortunately. But there's still ways to make that adaptation a lot more sustainable.
Okay, so why do you say unfortunately about the adaptation?
Well, because we're not into reversal in as many areas as we might have been 5 or 10 or 20 years ago.
Oh,
right?
okay.
So we're now at a point where there are certain hard and fast rules that have been broken, and we now have to learn how to adapt to those.
We have to learn to live with it.
Yeah, we have to learn to live with it, and we're seeing the results of that all over the place. Between extreme weather and it's not to say that there hasn't always been extreme weather, but the ferocity of the extreme weather that we're facing now very much has to do with that, pardon the expression, perfect storm between human degradation of the environment's sort of normal cycle of its own living and dying and living again. But we're helping the destruction that causes by our own behavior, and we still have just enough time to make some significant changes to that.
To make it a right. So, Julie, I just want to let everybody know your film Harmony is going to be airing again. I said it's because we're on the radio. It screens on November 10th at 3:00 at the Ojai Playhouse, and after the screening, there's going to be a panel that's sponsored by the Ojai Green Coalition. So tell the listeners who's going to be on that panel with you.
Well, there's going to be a really interesting table of people, to reflect the film in a way from different disciplines. So there's going to be someone who runs an organization that deals with what's called eco-psychology, which I think is fascinating.
What is that, eco-psychology?
I don't know, actually, to be honest with you. I don't know what that is.
I'm going to have to go to the panel and listen, I guess. Huh?
But I think that that if I were to extrapolate what it means to me and why I find it interesting is that there is a psychological pattern to the way things work in nature. There's a psychological pattern to the way we relate to nature. And putting those things in balance would require a lot of shifting. of our thinking, of the way we react to each other, of the way, we respect the way Mother Nature operates, that it's really about shifting our thinking. So I may not be right about that, but that's what it made me think of when I saw it. And that's a woman whose name is Lori Pye. Then there's a filmmaker and an activist who's a local Ojai resident named Michael Shapiro, who is going to be the moderator, and Nicholas Beach, who's an architect and civic activist, so he's involved in sustainable building. And then there's a woman named Tracy Ryder, who's the publisher and the co-founder of Edible Communities, Inc. And so it should be a lively pattern. And then the director of the film, Stuart Sender, who's also my husband, will also be on the panel.
Awesome. I love that. I'm definitely going to the panel because I want to hear more about how to make it work in every segment of society and life. And one of the things that we were talking about with the Green Coalition was, and you said this earlier in our dialogue, was evoking within people the idea that locally I could do something, and I can also do something nationally and globally. There's action that I can take.
Yes. I mean, I think that, I think Ojai is actually considered to be one of the greenest communities in the world, certainly in the country.
Right.
And I think that part of the reason why we're so excited to be doing the screening there is because I think that there's an audience of people there who could actually walk out of the screening and do something to make a difference in their community. And the inspiration of that is, well, if I can do it here, I can do it in a state next door. I can do it in Washington. I can do it the next time there's a climate summit. That they're really that any local action, it's like the butterfly effect.
Right.
It's felt somewhere else. Too.
Right. And I totally believe that. I think that, individually, people may think that, well, what is it that I could do that's really going to make a difference? But individually, we can, because we are at that place of interconnection, which Prince Charles said earlier. We are all in this together, and we are in it for, I want to say, a higher purpose. I don't know really what that means, but it's like it's to hold the
what?
vision.
I think we're in it for a higher purpose, and we're in it for a lower purpose. Because truthfully, survival is not always such a high-minded thing. It's also very real and very tangible for people. And I think, one of the things that needs to come into focus more for people is the tangibility of this crisis that we're in, and the tangibility of the smallest to the largest of efforts to solve these problems are important. There is no hierarchy in terms of creating change.
I love that. Julie Bergman Sender, thank you for joining us today. The movie is called Harmony. Again, it's going to screen on Sunday, November 10th at 3 p.m. at the Ojai Playhouse. And we've been talking about the Ojai Film Festival. You can go to ojaifilmfestival.com. It is the weekend of November 7th to the 11th. And go to the harmonymovie.com. Julie, is that what your website is?
TheHarmonyMovie.com, yes.
Right. So everybody go there and check it out, because on that website, there's some ideas that you guys have already come up with that people could get active about, right?
Not yet, to be honest. We're in the middle of revamping our website, but people can sign up on the website for DVDs when we're going to be releasing them, which will be in the spring. People can get acquainted with the characters from the film. They can watch the trailer and be in touch with us, because we read everybody's comments and we answer them.
I'm so grateful. And Julie, thank you for the work that you've done. I'm deeply grateful that you guys have taken this on.
And I'll see you in Ojai.
I'll see you in Ojai. Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
And so once again, it's the Ojai Valley Film Festival, November 7th to the 11th. And you can go get tickets on ojaifilmfestival.com. And you're listening to Living Your Inspired Life. If you've missed anything, you can go to livingyourinspiredlife.org and get tuned in and tuned up. And we're just going to take a short break, and we're coming back with another guest who has some phenomenal vision for the planet. And welcome back to Living Your Inspired Life. I'm Susan Burrell, and this is News Talk 1590 KVTA. And we are talking about the Ojai Film Festival. If you want to come and see any of the screenings that are happening from November 7th to November 11th, go to ojaifilmfestival.com and get your tickets. And it's going to be an awesome, awesome weekend. I'm so excited. And because I'm so excited, I am going to introduce our next guest. This is a woman who is a visionary and a futurist, and we're going to find out what that means. And she has done a film that's going to be airing on November 11th, Monday at 8 p.m. called Visions of a Universal Humanity. So I want to welcome on to the show Barbara Marx Hubbard. Barbara, thanks for joining us.
Thank you. I'm really delighted you're doing this.
Oh, it's my honor. I'm so glad to tell you. So I have a question for you. In everything I've been seeing and reading about you, which has been quite a bit, by the way, on the aside, you're called a futurist. So for our audience, just to get synced up, what does that mean?
Well, it's a sort of obvious thing that the minute you become a parent, for example, you're a futurist.
Oh, yeah.
You're not thinking just about the next year, but you tend to be easily thinking about 5, 10, 20, 21 years old. So what's happened to that idea of parenting and caring for your own life is that we now see you have to think ahead for your community and your planet. And so a futurist there's a whole World Future Society in Washington, D.C. that I'm a founder of, and it's made up of people who are developing scenarios and probabilities and solutions to longer range problems and possibilities. And I've been called something like a normative forecaster. And I'll tell you what that means.
Okay, please.
That's really futurist lingo, but normative means I sense there is a natural direction for evolution, which is to higher consciousness, more freedom, more complex and loving order for billions of years. So a normative futurist, like I am, see there is a new norm that would be natural for a planet at our stage. Now, many futurists would not see that.
Right. And why is that? Why wouldn't they see that? Because that, to me, what you just explained is how I see the world evolving. So why wouldn't other people see that?
They don't necessarily take the evolutionary perspective and apply it to their scenarios. They don't put themselves in the story of evolution, and they don't apply lessons. If you look at those billions of years, like the lesson is problems are evolutionary drivers.
Oh, I love that.
So if problems are evolutionary drivers and crises precede transformation, and you're having problems and you're in a crisis, you start to look for what it's transforming toward. What can you do to make leverage out of this crisis for something better?
I love that you're saying that, because we're certainly in crisis right now, and in so many different sectors on the planet, whether it's the government here in the United States and healthcare, or it's the economy. And one of the things you say in Visions of a Universal Humanity, you say that humanity is giving birth to a more evolved version of itself. Can you speak to that, Barbara?
Yes, I really think if you just look back a few 100,000 years, you have Homo erectus, Homo neanderthal, Homo sapiens, and about 50,000 years ago we got self-consciousness. That was a huge step forward. And now what's happened is that a whole era of self-consciousness that has led to top-down structures, individualism, and civilization, including science and democracy and religion. But now that sort of individualism is moving much more from the me to the we, as they're saying now, because we're recognizing that we're a whole planetary system. So we have to see things as a whole in order for the individual to improve. So it's a new way of thinking, and of course I've called it conscious evolution, in that evolution has been going on for billions of years, but we are the first generation to be aware that we're affecting our own evolution by the babies we have, the food we eat, the cars we drive, and that we could be running ourselves into a disastrous future, mainly through climate change and resource depletion and pollution and so forth, or we could be evolving ourselves towards a far greater future, not only fixing up the immediate crises, but actualizing new possibilities. So along with being a normative futurist, I got to be a visionary, because without vision, people perish.
I so agree with you on that.
It's hard to see a vision when you're really in an evolutionary change where you haven't been there before. We haven't, as a whole civilization, had to deal with massive climate change, with the effect of human growth on our planet. We have never had to deal with this as a whole. So we don't have any experts or elders in how a planet moves from high-tech, overpopulating, polluting species to a more evolved species. And the reason I think it's possible is that during crises, it seems to bring out the characteristics of more creativity, more consciousness, more awareness for survival. And that's how it's been for billions of years. And now we can do it more consciously.
Well, one of the things, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, it's the difference between having to do it by stress and extinction or more conscious choice.
Well, one of the things you talk about in Visions is that we each individually and collectively, it sounds like, have this code encoded within us to continue to move towards evolution. That's our natural way of being, is to continue to evolve no matter what.
I think that's true. I think that everybody basically wants to express their potential.
Yeah. Boy, I sure do.
Everyone wants to somewhere fulfill their own creativity. And that impulse, I call that the evolutionary impulse, it is pressing on all of us to move beyond activities that could destroy our environment and our civilization toward inventing designs of a more viable, evolvable world. You see, because almost all the structures are failing.
Yes.
Top-down structures, whether it be nation state, organized religion, global corporations, even universities with all the separate disciplines, are structured in a way of separation and control.
Yes.
So what's really growing is emergence, cooperation, co-creation, and all the new media is like a nervous system for the planet, where the global brain is turning on, where millions of us are connecting now every minute. And all knowledge is available, and all the great teachers are out on internet now.
They sure seem to be.
The secrets are out of the monasteries and the temples and the ashrams. They're out into the world, and you can tune in free to just about all of them.
Right. So those of us that are mystics and / visionaries are walking amongst everybody else, and we get to support this new consciousness on the planet. Nurture
we do
it.
And it's just in time, because if we do evolve towards a more conscious, empathetic, caring, loving, you might say, species, we will survive far better than if we stay in the illusion of separateness and competition in a world that is rapidly becoming one interrelated whole.
You know, it's so interesting that you put it that way. A couple years ago, I was getting these ideas or visions, if you would, of people sitting on a circle, and everybody gets to participate to the level of their creativity and their desire, and we all get to have a say about what's happening, whether it's a small organization or a global system of some sort. And that's what you're talking about, is this new idea of cooperation. I remember sharing it with my mom, who said, well, then who's going to be in charge? And you keep talking about the top down. We haven't found that out yet, right? Who's going to be in charge?
It's interesting. For the first few 100,000 years, we lived in small tribes and circles where everybody did know everyone else, and there was some domination and control within them, but it was pretty much egalitarian.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we gained, let's say, agriculture and surplus, we were able to amass power. And then as soon as the world could do that, about 5,000 years ago, that power began to congeal in military, in emperors, in religions, and enormous power that was structured from the top down.
Uh-huh.
And that created, for better or worse, it created civilization, because the small tribes without any surplus would not have done that. However, I think with the dropping of the atomic bomb on Japan in 1945, we realized, some of us, that the power was getting to be so great, power of blowing up worlds or creating new worlds in space and much more, that power had to be used more consciously with a direction towards the social good, or it would destroy humanity. So we've been awakened since 1945 to the immensity of our power to destroy and create.
Right. And so part of that is also part of the acceleration of technology as well that we've experienced in the last 100 years.
Yes, and one of the things that inspired me early on was in reading this great author, Teilhard de Chardin.
Mm.
He's a French author, and he coined this phrase, the noosphere, N-O-O-S sphere, or mind sphere. Peter Russell called it the global brain.
Okay.
And Teilhard wrote this before Internet, but he said he felt that at some point the noosphere, or the thinking layer of Earth, would begin to get its collective eyes.
Oh, that's interesting.
When it was infused with enough love, caring, and creativity, it would be like the nervous system of a baby after it's born. Suddenly, the nervous system hooks up, and the baby opens its eyes and smiles. Well, planet Earth has a nervous system with these, I think it's like 6 billion cell phones or more.
Oh, wow, yeah.
I mean, it's amazing. And Facebook is the third largest nation in the world. Over a billion people. And lots of other smaller networks are growing. Google is now taking on the subject of death itself.
Oh, my goodness, I didn't realize that.
Front page of Time magazine, Google takes on death. And they're going, they had billions of dollars, and they're doing research into aging. So what's happening here is the combined intelligence is going to change life one way or the other. It can be extremely destructive. Or if we have a sense of direction toward, I would say, higher consciousness, greater freedom, more loving and synergistic order, we could be seeing a future that has really been the vision of mystics and seers and artists throughout human history, but it's now feasible, but only if we respond to this crisis. And that's what the movie Visions of the Universal Humanity is about. What would be the vision of us actually responding
to this global crisis
and
waking up?
Yes.
So one of the things you talk about, Barbara, is in the movie is the feminine co-creator that is emerging right now as we speak. So could we talk a little bit about that?
Yes, I think there is a new kind of woman coming out, and it began really in the 60s. And this is not only cultural but even biological, because in the 60s we began to realize the population limit to growth on planet Earth.
Mm.
And now we have over 7 billion people. You cannot possibly continue in that direction and survive. So something started to happen in women, first of all, for equality, identity, and freedom. However, as that was gained in the feminine empowerment, feminist movements, there's another phase here where the woman who is already free wants to give her greatest potential into the world. She's a creator. And she's motivated by an inner creative source of expression, like you are or I am, called by a vocational calling to give a gift to the larger world. And in doing that, you begin to give birth to your larger self. And I call this kind of woman a feminine co-creator. She is incarnating the creative force, but she has a quality that women have biologically, is we're able to fall in love with the unknown child.
Oh, that's brilliant.
We're giving birth, and it's painful, and we have no idea how that child is really going to turn out. But there's that innate hormonal love.
Mm-hmm.
So while we're having fewer children and living longer lives, when a woman gets turned on to her creativity, she also awakens that hormonal, unconditional love of the unknown world. We don't know how this world's going to turn out. It does look like a mess in many, many ways, and people easily become discouraged, as you could if you looked at a newborn baby and didn't know it could grow up.
Right.
So the feminine co-creator has an intuition, whether she be in economics like Hazel Henderson's, or in creativity like Jean Houston, or biology like Bruce Lipton. These are all people on my film. They got woken up to the potential in their field. And the women have a special quality, I believe, of almost unconditional love and intuition and care of the whole. And I believe there also is the co-creative man who is breaking out of the structure of the top-down structured civilization, where success means getting ahead, getting on the top, competing successfully, to the man who is looking for his innate potential and wanting to give it into the world in a way that has that same quality of individual creativity and love. So ultimately, the feminine co-creator may be the one who's starting this first, because also women over 50, 60, 70, 80, like myself, there's no social pattern for us. You're not supposed to do something when you're 80, for example. I'm 80, almost 84, so I've coined a phrase for the feminine co-creator, and I call it regenopause.
Wait, say that again, Barbara. Regenopause?
Yes. So, after menopause, you have no more eggs. You're not going to reproduce the species. So your body is shifting. And in the old days, people used to feel after menopause, when you were in your 50s or 60s, that you were aging and you were losing your beauty and your vitality. But actually, women now, 50, 60, 70, and beyond, are enormously vital and gaining vitality when they're not reproducing children. That is an unprecedented resource for the planet. And if our species is evolving, one of the aspects of its evolution is the feminine co-creator being liberated and free, and to be in partnership with men who also are moved by co-creative potential. And I think we're seeing an evolving species here.
I love this explanation, Barbara, because that's kind of, as I've been observing what's been happening in the last several years, that's where I've been putting my attention, is not that this is structural breakdown that means that, the end days are here, like a lot of people are saying or running to, the Chicken Little, the sky is falling idea. But I've been putting my attention on that this is the precursor to the next yet to be that we haven't experienced yet. And like you said earlier, we don't know how to structure it yet, because we haven't lived it.
That's exactly right, Susan. And what we're beginning to do is design new structure, which is not the top-down structure of all the existing organizations. Like in my own evolve.org website, I have come up with a structure which is a wheel of co-creation. And so you have the evolutionary spiral, and then our turn on the spiral is structured in the shape of a wheel. And you have health, education, economics, science, and technology as spokes on the wheel. And you have the hub is a spiritual sacred space where the impulse, the spirit in action comes through people. Like you and me on this phone, I would see us as being in a small resonant conversation in the noosphere, in the global brain, sending out signals through each other to the larger world that we could be reaching thousands and thousands of people, and that this is part of a new structure right now. And there's a lot of effort going on in the high-tech world of developing collaborative structures for people to have shared projects where we want to look for common goals and match needs with resources. And we will do that on my website as well. But some of the big ones, like some of the people who were founders of Facebook and Google, are wanting to set up major, there's one called One Project. You can see it on Google. One Project is an effort to have a global cooperative structure for anybody to connect with anybody anywhere in the world to co-create. So you think of, let's say, President Obama. I had this dream about him. In the dream, he said, I can't get anything done from this position.
Yeah.
Because he's president. But
Right.
Look what you could do with global collaborative structure. You see, so I keep reminding us that the people who have the potential for the new design are the ones who are not at the top of existing structures. We are the free ones. And we're using the internet, and we're using our websites, and we're using these collaborative tools to really help people find their vocation, their life purpose, their projects, and connect with each other to co-create. And the beauty of this is that it gives you joy.
No, absolutely.
There's a positive benefit, just like, there's a joy in sexuality. There's a joy in what I call supra-sexuality, or joining your creativity. There is, instead of joining to have the baby, you're joining to give birth to the greater self and the greater world. And nature put joy into co-creation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even though it can be challenging because we don't have all the structures. So that's why you have to be a futurist and an innovator. But at the same time, the minute you get close to being with others who need what you need to give, and you need what they want to give, you go into a pattern of co-creation. And it feels good. It's self-rewarding action.
And that also, as you're speaking, Barbara, I'm hearing underneath all of that is in that experience of joy in the co-creation process, it begins to lighten up or lift off of the planet all the fear that is. It feels like I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but when I go out in the world, like to the grocery store, I feel this heaviness of fear, and I don't listen to the news. I don't. I just want to be happy, no matter what, and this heaviness of fear. So as you're describing this co-creation process and the joy that it brings, it's got to uplift the planet, yes?
It definitely does, because it serves the individual, because if it's your potential that you're expressing, like you doing this radio show, or me being a communicator of evolutionary, future potential, we are self-rewarded right there. Right. And then we're giving people the idea they can do it too.
Right.
I've been teaching on the Shift Network, and I have maybe 4,000 students, all of who have been on long classes with me with all these ideas. And now they're being invited to form evolutionary circles. And in the circles and hubs, they can build their own little wheels of co-creation and find out people and invite people who are doing things that are working to come together at the community level.
Uh-huh.
because it's really important in this to overcome the fear is you're not alone.
Yes.
See, I think that there tends to be a tendency in this culture to feel isolated. And we do a lot on internet, as a matter of fact, that although it connects us on one level, it isolates us from our natural neighborhood development that we used to have. And so it's very important, in order to keep that joy of your creativity, that you build your small groups of community. And churches do this to some degree. If it's a really good church, people then have a natural place of convening. But if you don't belong to a good church or organization, you really have to do it yourself.
Right, and your website, which is evolve.org?
Yes.
This whole idea of the wheel of co-creation and everything is then going to support individuals in finding their community without having to necessarily go to an organized church or something like that. Yes,
exactly. If you click on evolve.org, you'll see a picture of the spiral and the wheel, and I tell a little story about it. And then you click again, join the community, and you'll see the wheel of co-creation. The website is not complete yet, but the wheel has all the different functions that people are attracted to doing, and then you place yourself in one of those sectors and meet others. If it's in health or education or science and technology, where you want to give your gift, we want to support people in finding each other to co-create.
I think that's fabulous because it's a global community.
It is global, and then what you can do is then you can localize it by wherever you live. We have this little toolkit now called the Evolve Pack.
Uh-huh.
And the Evolve Pack is like a backpack, and it has in it the movies. It has Our Story and Visions of a Universal Humanity, and some guidelines for having neighborhood gatherings with your movies. And it invites the person to become a leader and a communicator of what's growing and what's emerging, and then to put themselves on the evolve.org website. So we're fostering social evolution and spiritual evolution through connecting with each other and creating community both on internet and right where you live.
Barbara Marx Hubbard, I just adore that you've been doing this work and that you continue. I'm telling you, I mean, the name of the show is Living Your Inspired Life. I am so inspired just having this short conversation with you.
Thank you. Thank you. I definitely have said yes somewhere.
You did. You did, and I'm grateful you said yes, because those of us that are saying yes now, we need a visionary to light the way.
I have to tell you, at almost 84, I'm sort of proud of that. I'm only 83, but I'll be 84 December 22nd. I have really noticed it's regenerating.
Oh, wow.
That because the impulse to express and give and create is life. It's the life force, whatever you want to call it. And when you say yes to it and find ways of expressing yourself toward connecting with others, just like we're on this phone right now, we're creating good energy. You can feel it.
Oh, yeah.
I feel it in myself even just being with you, because it's a kindred soul. It's a shared experience. And you really have to be a pioneer in the sense of seeking out others and being with others to fulfill what's moving you to express. And in that sense, I call it the community of pioneering souls, because you have to. We had the physical pioneers. Look what they had to do.
Right.
Now, what we have to do is a more social, spiritual pioneering, is to say yes to the inner impulse and reach out, whether it be in your business or in your neighborhood or in your church, is reach out and really express yourself from the inner reality of your experience to the outer reality of your desire to create.
Barbara, I have chills as you say that. Thank you so much for joining us today. Again, Barbara Marx Hubbard's film Visions of a Universal Humanity is going to air at the Ojai Valley Film Festival Monday, November 11th at 8 o'clock. And Barbara, you're going to be there to answer questions afterwards, yes?
I will. I'm looking forward to it.
I am too. I'm going to be there too. So thank you so much for joining us on Living Your Inspired Life. For everyone out there, if you want to get tickets to the Ojai Valley Film Festival, go to ojaifilmfestival.com. And you can get tickets for the entire weekend. And if you've missed anything about this program, you can go to livingyourinspiredlife.org and tune in and tune up to your power perspective. Thank you so much, Barbara. And I'm going to say, and so it is. Namaste.